Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here with the third and final part of my September wrap-up. Parts 1 and 2 will be linked down below, as well as everything else I mentioned, content warnings, all of that. And the first 4 books I'm going to talk about are actually part of a reading vlog that I did, which I'm hoping is up at this point, so I will link that down below. But first I have The Reluctant Godfather by Alison Thibault. This is a very short novella that is a kind of Cinderella retelling from the perspective of a fairy godfather character. So our main character is named Berndy, and he hates being a fairy godfather, but in order to get like the rest of them kind of off his back, he has to kind of like make an extra effort for his like clients, and he basically figures out that he can just set up the Cinderella character with the prince character, and this is like all his problems will be solved. It says a royal ball presents Berndy with the brilliant solution of how to make his wards happy with the least amount of effort. He'll arrange a meeting and hope the two fall in love. A humorous and magical retelling of Cinderella from a unique perspective. And I would definitely agree with all of that. I really enjoyed this. I liked the romance. I definitely think the humor really worked for me. I liked the characters. I liked Berndy's character arc and seeing him like realize that humans are actually not that bad sometimes, and just like becoming like a kinder and like warmer person. I really enjoyed that. I thought this was a really fun take on the Cinderella story. It reminded me of a couple other books I really enjoy that have this kind of perspective, and I really liked that. I just thought this was really funny, really cute, and I really enjoyed it. The only thing is that I wish there would have been a little bit less of like the viewing Ella, the Cinderella character, as like being kind of dumb or like dim-witted. I wish there had been less of that. I do think that makes sense as like a part of Berndy's character arc, but personally I could have done with less of that. But this was really good, and I gave The Reluctant Godfather 4 stars. Next I finished Iveliz Explains It All by Andrea Beatriz Arango. This is a novel in verse, and it's also pretty short. Our main character is Iveliz, and she is dealing with PTSD and depression, and she has recently started seeing a therapist, and she's also on medication to manage this, and her mother have also gone through some really traumatic and difficult, sad things in their lives, and they're not really doing a great job of like managing it. Like Iveliz is trying, and her mother is as well, but it's one of those things where they're not really working through it together. They're kind of isolated from each other. And then Iveliz's grandmother, she ends up coming to stay with them from Puerto Rico, and her grandmother has Alzheimer's, so that is really difficult as well. Iveliz really loves her grandmother. They've always been pretty close, and it's hard for her to see her grandmother like this. And then it's also hard for her because her grandmother is not very understanding about Iveliz's needs, like what she's going through, and the fact that she does benefit from medication, and that's not a shameful thing, that's not a bad thing. And I really love the way this book handled that. I really love this book. Like, this is just such an important story. I cried. I thought it was really well written. I loved the writing style. I think that this would be a good recommendation either for people who are new to novels in verse, because I think it's very easy to follow, but also people who have read a lot of them. I think it would still be a great recommendation because I think that the verse style really works. I love the way that Iveliz's personality really shines through that. Like, I loved the writing itself. I loved Iveliz as a main character. I just wanted to like hug her and love her and tell her everything was going to be okay. Like, I just think it's so important that kids are going to see themselves in this book and see that like it's just, I know I keep saying the word important, but it's just so important that kids know that they are not alone and that there's nothing wrong with them, like that they are not broken because they might need counseling or they might need medication. I just think that is incredible. And obviously, like, it still meant a lot to me. I've mentioned recently how I recently started going back to therapy, and even though like what I'm going through is not the same as what Iveliz is dealing with, like we have different situations, it still meant a lot to see this kind of thing. So I can only imagine how much it means for kids to read this, because kids do go through things like this. It's not like depression or trauma or anything like that. It's not like that just starts when you're an upper teenager, I thought this was beautifully done. I thought the topics were handled with so much care and thoughtfulness. I thought the messy relationships were shown really well, like the way that you can love someone but they can sometimes not understand you, or just like the way that like Iveliz's relationship with her mother and with her grandmother, how complicated those were, and also Iveliz's relationship with her counselor or her therapist, because she's pretty reluctant to ask for help. And we see her kind of throughout the book realize that she can actually ask for help. So even though it was hard waiting for her to get to that point, I think that was really well done as well. And I really liked how we see Iveliz realize that you can't just ignore things like this. And I think this book does a great job of showing how like therapy and medication can be great for people. Like, there are a lot of people who benefit from those things, and like therapy is like shown in like a positive light even when Iveliz is not not like, you know, super thrilled to be there, or she's not comfortable accepting this kind of help yet. Like, I think this book does a great job of showing that people might be reluctant to take that kind of help, but the book doesn't show it as a negative thing, if that makes sense. But I thought this was absolutely incredible. I'm so glad I read it, and I gave Iveliz Explains It All 5 stars. Next, I finished Greenwitch by Susan Cooper. This is the third book in the Darkest Rising sequence, and I think this might be the shortest book in the series. In this edition, it's like just over 100 pages, and it's kind of like a bridge book because the first story is kind of like a prequel, and that's with the, what's their last name? I can't find it. Oh, Drew. So the 3 Drew children are like the main characters of the first story, and then the second one, it's this boy named Will Stanton who's from a different family, and then this third story, Greenwitch, it kind of brings them together for the first time, and they're not quite working together yet, but they sort of are starting to throughout that story. So it kind of bridges the like main characters into one group, and it's also kind of like there's like one quest that they're kind of focusing on in this story, but it's overall not a super plot heavy one. It's like a lot of vibes really and a lot of atmosphere, and I did enjoy this one. I like that Jane has such a prominent role in this book, even though it is still kind of that like, you know, just feeling what the right thing to do is. Like I mentioned that in the previous book in the series, I can see that being something that annoys people, and I totally understand that. I think for me it didn't bug me because it just felt right for this kind of story, and I like Susan Cooper's writing style, and so the way she conveys that doesn't annoy me, you know? I think there was some great atmosphere here. There were some like, you know, creepy or like tense parts that I think were communicated really well. So overall, I think this is a really solid bridge book. I gave Greenwitch 4 stars, and I'm excited to continue my reread. As I've said a few times, like I remember basically nothing about this series apart from a couple of like impressions of certain scenes. So this has been an interesting experiment. And then the last book I read in that vlog was Lore Olympus Volume 2 by Rachel Smythe. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling that is kind of set in a big city. I obviously did not enjoy the first volume, but I was willing to give the second one a chance because I thought it might fix some of the issues I had. And I do think that there was more characterization here, which I liked. But overall, I still didn't enjoy this. I think I'm DNFing this series because the problems I had with the first volume I still have here, which is, I know I keep saying this, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but like the over-sexualization of the female characters and also their infantilization. Both of those things together are extra uncomfortable. Like either one of them would have not been great, but like to have them together, it's gross to me. I don't like it. It really just disturbs me, the like fixation of this story on how young and naive and inexperienced Persephone is. And I get that that's like in a lot of retellings are like based on Persephone, that is kind of her character or her backstory, but there are ways to like handle that in a way that doesn't like fetishize it almost, and that's kind of how I felt with this volume. Also, there is really no reason that the age gap between them had to be so dramatic. Like Hades, we are told like canonically Hades is like 2,000 plus years old and Persephone is 19. Like not like the equivalent of 19 in like Olympian years, literally a 19-year-old. And we didn't need that. Like we didn't have to have that drastic of an age gap. And like I said in the vlog, I'm not somebody who is like automatically bothered by supernatural age gaps just because I read a lot of fantasy books or books where that is a thing. So it doesn't necessarily bother me unless you make it bother me. And this book makes it bother me. There's also like this additional position of power that Hades ends up in over Persephone in this volume. And I do like Hades as a character. I don't think he's necessarily being creepy, but like the volume itself is. And I still don't buy into their relationship really. Like it seems just like purely attraction. Like we get, I guess, a little bit more meaningful interactions with them here, but overall it still just feels like she's really hot and really young, and he's like disturbed by that. Like he doesn't want to be creepy about it, but that is like the main attraction for him. It's just, I don't know, I'm not explaining this very well, but I didn't like it. Even though I liked a couple of the side characters here, I'm just not enjoying this series. I gave this volume 2 stars as well. And also another thing that bugged me is Minthe, the like Hades' ex. This might be slightly spoilery, but I don't think it really is given like the premise of the story. But the way she's characterized, like she's just really unlikable in the first volume. Like the way she treats Hades is just really messed up, and we're obviously not supposed to be okay with that, which is fine. But then why do we spend this volume like characterizing her in such a way that like I feel like she's a better match for Hades than Persephone. And I just think that's weird. It's like we know that the two of them are not going to be endgame. Like Hades and Minth are not going to end up together. And I'm not saying that like the only reason you would give a character like nuance or backstories if they're going to be a love interest. I just mean the specific way that Minthe was characterized here. It felt so odd when I know that she's not gonna like stick around as a love interest, you know? Like I think her and Hades are a better match. So anyway, I didn't like this. I'm DNFing the series. Okay, I had to change my camera battery, so apologies for the different angle. Next, I finished Heartstone by L. Catherine White. This won my Instagram poll about the book that I should read next. And this is kind of Pride and Prejudice with dragons. The reason I say kind of is because I shelved this as a retelling, but in terms of other retellings I've read, I feel like this is more like a fantasy novel that has some character dynamics and situations that are similar to Pride and Prejudice, and then some like fun Easter eggs related to that. But to me, this feels more separate as a story, and I really enjoyed this. We're following our main character, Eliza, and in this world there are like dragons, obviously, and kind of dragon riders, and they're sort of meant to like protect different communities. And so Alistair Dyrud is the Darcy character, and he and the Bingley character end up being like kind of hired as the protectors of like this certain area because there are a lot of like griffins that are terrorizing the area and that have already really hurt Eliza's family, and so they're in town to kind of take care of this problem. And yeah, that kind of like sets off the whole story. And like I said, I really liked this. I really enjoyed seeing the like references to Pride and Prejudice, and I actually really enjoyed some of the changes the author made. Like I liked Gwyn, the Charlotte Lucas character. I like her storyline a lot more in this than in the original, or like I found it more convincing and enjoyable. I also liked that the way some of the antagonists were done, like antagonists from the original story. I mean, I like some of the way that they were characterized. I really liked Eliza and Alistair's scenes together. In fact, I wanted like more with them. The scene that's like the equivalent of Elizabeth taking like the tour of Pemberley was so good. Like I wish we had gotten more of that because I loved that. I really loved like the family relationships. I loved like the way that Leda was characterized, the Lydia character, and I just think like the sister vibes were really great in this, which is something I enjoyed. Even though I liked the romance though, this is one of the cases where I wanted more emphasis on the romance over the plot, because we kind of, as we go further into the book, there's like kind of these like bigger things happening with like the world being in danger and stuff, and I kind of just wanted like less of the big plot stuff. Like I just was really enjoying these characters and their relationships and that part of the story, so I kind of wish we had like more of that and less of the big plot stuff. I also feel like, even though I liked Eliza a lot, I kind of feel like because we spent so much time on like the big plot stuff, we didn't get to know her quite as well as I would have liked. Like I still enjoyed her, but like I think that's another thing that this book could have benefited from, like more character relationship time versus like the plot time, is I feel like we would have gotten to know her better. And also that includes like kind of her change of heart, like her change of feelings. Like I said, I enjoyed the romance, so it didn't like bother me too much. It didn't ruin the book for me, but I think we could have had more development of that. I also really liked Karis and her storyline. She's the Caroline Bingley character. I really, really liked her. I wish she had been in the book more, and I really didn't like the way her storyline went, like the direction it took. And I think that, you know, that's partly because I like personally just found her an interesting character, but I also just think the way that played out was disappointing. And then I also had mixed feelings about the ending. One thing I really love is that this book kind of subverts expectations in a way, because Eliza like doesn't suddenly become a like super powerful dragon rider just because she's the main character. Like that's not her area, and I really like that this book didn't do that. But then my issue with the ending is that I both feel like Eliza was too involved in the ending and not involved enough in like some big things that happen at the end. Like I just didn't find that satisfying. Like I wanted her to be an important part of the solution, but the way it happened just felt odd to me. And then finally, this is just like a little minor thing, but I found the gnome characters so irritating. Like I think they were supposed to be really cute and sweet, and I don't know what it was. Like they just bugged me. Like it didn't feel like they were there for any reason except to show like that Eliza is just such a wonderful, kind, and funny person. And it's like, I already like Eliza. Like we don't need to like have these repeated interactions of her being like defender of the gnomes or whatever. Like they weren't like horrible. It makes it sound like I hated the gnomes. I didn't hate them. I just found them a little annoying and unnecessary. But obviously, like, I still really enjoyed this book. I know I spent a lot of time talking about issues with it that I had, but I did really like a lot of things about this. I'm very glad I finally read it. Everyone who thought I would enjoy this was correct, because obviously I had a great time. And I gave Hearthstone 4 stars. And then finally, the last book I finished in September, I technically finished after midnight, so this was like really early on October 1st, but because I hadn't gone to bed yet, I'm counting this. I finished The Bell at Belgrave Square by Mimi Matthews. This is the second book in the no, what is it? What's the name of the series? I can't remember, but the first book is The Siren of Sussex. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the series. I received this arc in exchange for an honest review. I think that should already be up at the time that this video goes up, so I will link that down below if you want more thoughts. But we are following our main character, Julia Witchwood, and she has social anxiety. Like it's pretty clearly that's partly what's going on here, and I really like the way that was characterized in a historical setting. And in order to escape her like pretty unpleasant parents and like the prospect of a loveless marriage, she asks Captain Jasper Blunt to like have a marriage of convenience with her in exchange for like him leaving her alone. She can just read and like relax as much as she wants, and he will get her money in order to fix up his manor and take care of the apparent like horde of bastard children that he has. Everybody has heard that like there's like this creepy like his house is really creepy and run down, and that he's got all these like illegitimate children running around everywhere. Like those are the rumors and everything, and so they agree to this marriage of convenience. This is like loosely a Beauty and the Beast kind of retelling or inspired story. And so the two of them end up like getting married and going off there together. I did really like Julia. I really liked the focus on books and storytelling. Like I really loved that. I also thought the kid characters were really well written. I think that's something that can be like, especially in romances, I feel like kid side characters are sometimes, like as Kazen from Always Doing says, she describes them as like plot moppets, and these kids didn't feel like that to me. They felt like actual like characters who had their own like personality and everything. Like they weren't just there to facilitate the romance, which I appreciate. I do wish that I had liked Jasper more as a hero. I should have mentioned he's like known as the hero of the Crimea, like the Crimea War, and he apparently was really ruthless there, but supposedly now he has like a change of heart and everything. And I like he wasn't bad, but I just wanted to like him more than I did. I also think his secret keeping was a little annoying. Like I wasn't convinced that it was necessary for as long as he thought it was. And I also had kind of mixed feelings about the way Julia's anxiety was like used in this book. Like I mentioned, like I think it was well done in a historical setting, but I also kind of wonder about the way that she was overcoming parts of that. But overall, I did enjoy this. As I said, check out my review. I also want to mention that this book does spoil some classics. It spoils Lady Audley's Secret, like in the actual story. And then the author in her author's note talks about some of the other books that she took inspiration from, and The Blue Castle is definitely one that I picked up on, which I love that book. So if you want to read it, I would recommend reading that before this one. And then what was the other one? Oh, The Law and the Lady by Wilkie Collins. And there might have been another Wilkie Collins book that it spoils as well, or that it talks about some. So I just wanted to mention that because even though that information is in the author's note, there's no like introduction, and I personally like to be prepared when I'm going to be like spoiled for books, you know, that you wouldn't necessarily know from the premise. But I did like the way that books were used in this, obviously. So yeah, check out my review for more thoughts on that. So those are the rest of the books I read in September. Please comment down below and let me know if you have read any of these books, what you thought of them, or if you're going to pick them up. And what should I ask you today? Let me know a book that you had a like really strong like emotional connection to, or a book that you just really loved, because Iveliz Explains It All was absolutely wonderful. Like I obviously thought it was going to be good, or I wouldn't have like picked it up and read it, but it was fantastic. Highly recommend that one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!